You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It is your host, Brian Fullerton, here, hanging with you guys, and good morning. Well, we are keeping the show rolling, keeping things growing. We're really excited about today's podcast episode. We're going to be sharing a little bit of an excerpt that we had just recently from the live stream that we did with the new Facebook community and growing group that we have called Link. L-I-N-K, Link. And we had none other than special guest with our monthly call with a special guest that we do from somebody who has a larger size business, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million plus dollar company. That was something that we did a poll with the Facebook group before we created it. What do you guys want to see in this group? How can we serve you? How can we add value? And overwhelmingly, people said they wanted guest speakers, Q&As that had larger size companies. And I love that idea, by the way. So last month, you guys might have remember, you heard a snippet from Leroy Maines, who owns Brilliant Borders. This month's guest, we locked him down. We got him. We secured the bag. We got not only the one and only, the founder, LMN, Mr. Mark Bradley, who came in to share for a little over an hour and 15 minutes almost. He was joining us live from, I think, Puerto Vallarta. Is that what it is? From Mexico. And the dude is just incredibly smart. He was coming in real time from the NALP conference down there. And frankly, just folks dropped bombs like you wouldn't believe for an hour and 15 minutes on this live stream. It was a free-for-all Q&A session. I was lobbing these up to Mark, and dude, the guys just knocked dingers, just home runs, knocked it out of the park. And the whole conversation is helping guys go from 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand to twofolds. One, helping them get to that next size level in their business, maybe 750, $1 million, $2 million. And then number two, maybe you just want to say as a small owner operator size business, or maybe a couple of guys, and run a $300,000-$400,000 company, but be exceedingly profitable at doing so. Mark really talked to those two camps. And frankly, that's really the group for Launchpreneur Academy Link. Now, granted, there's a lot of guys in there that have 600 grand businesses, $1 million business. A couple guys in there have a couple multi-million dollar businesses. And that whole Facebook group has just been ridiculously valuable. I'm just telling you guys, it's $29 a month. No hard pitch here. I'm not going to oversell it. I'm not going to convince you to join. But I will say, if you find value in this 10 or 15 minute excerpt that I just wanted to share, because Mark, we had this window where I'm like, dude, that was so good. This can set some people free. We're going to share that on the podcast on Friday. If you like this, imagine 4, 5, 6 times longer of a period that you get to listen to Mark for this live stream and the replay. And so, by the way, if you do join the group, if you do join Link, you do get access to all the other replays in the library. Right now, we have Leroy Maines, like I said, the first one was things only been around for 2 months, 155 members plus or minus, growing every month. So this thing's growing. The conversations are awesome. People are talking about software, trucks, trailers, contracts, marketing initiatives. Go figure, right now this time of year, bidding and estimating. And so we do a weekly live stream Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then with myself. And then, like I said, once a month or so, maybe even more, we're going to be getting guest interviews. And so this was just a quick excerpt that we wanted to share from Mark Bradley. That being said, we'll leave a link in the description for Link. If you guys want to check out the group, if you guys want to take your company to the next level, if you want to elevate your business, if you want to get around peers in the industry that are making it happen, you want to share notes, ask questions. And I say this seriously, like in a safe environment where you're not going to get lambasted, like on a public Facebook group or, asking the junk you public. That's where it is, and that's where it's happening. So, guys, that being said, big shout out to Mark Bradley, big shout out to LMN. So awesome and grateful to have him joining us. There's between about 60 or 65 people live on the Facebook for that whole hour and 15 minutes. And literally everybody kept saying, dropping bombs, mic drop, holy cow, this was worth the whole annual membership just with this live stream. You can, prepay your membership in advance for a discount. Like, it's crazy that this stuff was available for $29 plus everything else that you guys get in the group. Okay. So any which way, we're going to transition. Let's hear that little excerpt from LMN, from Mark Bradley himself. And guys, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of all things Mark, I encourage you to do that. Check out his mastermind classes that he's doing around the country. The guy's on tour, just helping people grow. Just incredible time. I can't speak highly of it enough. So that's what got said. Appreciate you guys listening in. Hope you guys have a smooth weekend. We got snow moving in, so I'm talking fast because we're moving fast. We're about to get out there and play that snow, make that dough. But in the meantime, let's hear from this excerpt from Mark Bradley, founder of LMN. Take it away. I want to hit the heavy ones while we got Mark, which was everybody this time of year is considering software or building their team or adding people to their team or frankly drafting some team members because they're not up to snuff. So that 0 to $500,000, there's things like Yardbook. I use Yardbook right now. We're considering LMN and switching over very likely here before we know it. And again, that relates back to that smaller business, right? Yardbook is free. It's easy to use. It's great for invoicing, maybe building some routes. Love Yardbook. Mark that runs Yardbook. Great guy. But where have you noticed, is that a bottleneck to some guys too for their growth? Like maybe they have the spider monkey approach, like they're holding on to the peanut inside the gourd and they can't let go because they don't want to pay $100 a month, $500 a month for software or really dial into their numbers. They just want to do the work. But is there like a mental, like you have to graduate from just saying, hey, we're good at doing work to, hey, we got to get better at running a business. And then how does LMN come into play with that? Not necessarily a pitch for LMN, but what tools do we need to be able to grow from that mob 400 grand business, 200 grand business to $1 million, $2 million company? Because you can't just wing it forever, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And separate from software, I think there's a key component, and that's like becoming aware of what you don't know. And I think this has been like an evolution for me in my entire career. As I said, I left high school. I started an apprenticeship. I've been a really hands-on learner my whole life. I'm that typical C student that you didn't pay attention much in school, but I make a pretty good leader because I'm pretty good at leaning over and asking somebody for advice and listening. I think I probably had to do that to get through high school. And so throughout my career, I've always kind of learned that I have to evolve as a leader from the time I was 300,000. I kind of saw this like pattern of the threes and the ones. And so like from 300,000, you're an owner operator and you're making sure the work's getting done. You're doing the work. You're on top of efficiency because you're out there in the workforce. As you start to transition and you get to take the business up to $1 million, you got to kind of replace yourself a few times. And so when you start to replace yourself once or twice or 3 times, the wheels kind of fall off because there's just not enough hours in the day for somebody to look after all the issues with equipment and sell the jobs and sort of stay on top of everything that needs to be done. And so I think what happens is people get a little bit afraid and they don't keep pushing the growth. And I think we all do this naturally in life. We kind of return to the last place we felt safe. If you get lost in a big city, we were probably all taught the same thing as kids, like backtrack, go back to where you were when you knew where you were last. And in business, I think we do the same thing. And I've certainly done that many times over the years. But usually when I started to feel lost and I didn't know how to continue to grow, what I would always do is I would seek out a mentor. And I think that's pretty important. If I spent the time to seek out the right mentor and I asked the right questions, I always found that those people were just kind of waiting there. They wanted to share. And there's usually people who have kind of made the mistakes that want to help somebody else avoid making those mistakes. And so over the years, I was so fortunate, whether it was customers, other people in the industry, people from my trade association. These days, I'm in a few peer groups, as a software CEO. And over the years, I've always just really looked for that person who could kind of guide me through that next evolution as a leader. And so from 300,000 to $1 million, I had to evolve. To get from 1 million to 3 million, I had to evolve again. There was just very different role as a business owner to go from 1 to 3 million. When I went from 3 million to 10 million, I had to evolve in a completely different way. And so I needed different mentors. I needed different people on the team. I needed a different way of running the business. And so again, from 10 million to get to 30 million, that was like a world of difference for me to evolve. I was a completely different person at 30 million as I was at 10 million. I just had to change as a leader and I had to really understand the business completely different. And then as I passed 30 million and continued to scale the business, again, it just felt like I always had to evolve. And so what I try to do is I try to teach people what they need to know at the stage they're at. And I like to do that by educating people in budgeting workshops, estimating workshops, mastermind workshops about growing people and replacing yourself as a leader. And so regardless of what software you're using, you have to seek out that mentorship. And this is just something that I'm trying to do at scale for the industry, because I know how hard it is to find those people. And at this point, it feels better for me to give back on that educational side than just about anything else I do. And so I really believe that education is the way forward. Software, that's a set of tools that allows you to deploy that newfound knowledge at scale and sort of replace yourself with some technology. But it's just a set of tools. You have to know what you don't know before it makes sense to use it. And so I really think that LMN is just, part of a leader's evolution.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I said this 100 times before at your mastermind that you did, and I know you're doing these across the country. LMN was 10% of the conversation that 48 hours. It was all about leadership and finding your right-hand guy and bonus and profit share. And a lot of guys that are in the chat right now, Damon was just talking about that. Like, great session, but that was more the conversation than just, hey, here's what Element can do. Of course, Element's great, it sounds like, but there's so much more to that to grow the company than just your software. So that's, let me ask you this, as the piggyback on that, the question we got earlier was, what is a revenue that most guys get stuck at? And what is a system that is often overlooked in business? Maybe for that same 0 to $500,000 conversation, what do you think is a revenue that most guys get stuck at, I guess? And then what's a system that's often overlooked as people are trying to grow?
Yeah, I love that question, actually, because I think people get stuck in around the $300,000 to $500,000 range. And I think often it's because there is a lack of that foundational knowledge that I shared earlier, the budgeting, estimating, job costing. They're just not really sure on how to sustainably grow profit and continue to make a really good living for the owner and for the employees. And so I think that's the kind of key piece. But then as you get to 500,000, I think what you really need to focus on is these two key things in a business. And I feel like I learned this the hard way. Our businesses are not made up of the owner. Our businesses are actually made up of the customers that we decide to work for, and what services we decide to perform for them, and then what people we hire and how we train them and develop them to fill the needs of those customers. Because ultimately, like, what I learned in my 30 years is when I stay up at night worrying about my own business, it doesn't get better. When I stay up at night worrying how to solve the problems of my customer, then my business gets better, because then I focus on building people and systems and processes that really evolve so that I can efficiently solve those problems for my customer. And if I've got really happy customers and really amazing employees, then I've got a really incredible company that can continue to scale. And so as a leader, as I sort of crested that $1 million mark, I really learned that the hard way. I think people in my company were subpar. Our work started to kind of suffer a little bit because I couldn't stay on top of everything. The customer feedback was starting to feel a little bumpy. My cash flow wasn't so good. My profits weren't so good. I wasn't earning as much as I should have. And I really was kind of forced to evolve. And I think when I really started to focus on the customer's needs and solving the problem that they have and building the perfect team to execute and making sure they understood what that problem was and how we were going to solve it efficiently, then we started to really win.
Wow, that's good stuff. Literally 5 people said that's good stuff. That was an amazing answer. And that was worth the annual membership of Link. So I always joke with some folks like Mark at your level and above. I always say, you guys have forgot more than some of us will ever learn. One of those oldies, but just chock full of wisdom. So thank you for imparting that. Let me scroll up here if you don't mind. I've got a longer winded question. It was actually just relating to that 3 to 500 grand mark where a lot of guys get stuck. It was from Damon, who actually just, I think he signed up with LMN after your mastermind in Novi. He was at LAL, has got a gym in business. He said, my question is two-part. We're going from 200 to 500 this season. We're going to go from 200 to 500 this season since we figured out how much more work we can get done with people. How long would you hover between 500 and 600 annual revenue on purpose with healthy profits, earning out efficiency, identifying the direction of your business, stacking cash, investing in the people, then make a hard push to 1 million, 2 million, where maybe it doesn't seem to be as profitable? I guess not to go through the whole question here. Am I completely wrong in my thinking that we should stay more steady on a growth pattern and maybe grow by $100,000 a year after that 500K milestone?
Another awesome question. So thanks, Damon.
That's a great question, bro.
Yeah,
that's my question too.
Yeah, it's super good. Okay, so here's my answer. Don't fixate on revenue. Fixate on people. So when you're ready to grow, your people will tell you. And so I'll say it this way. I don't want to hire crew leaders. Some people call them foremen. I'm really on this mission to call them like field crew supervisors or crew leaders. The foreman is sort of gender specific, and I think we have to unlock the opportunity of getting every gender working in this industry. So here's the thing. When I've got a crew leader that has replaced themselves with an incredible right-hand person, then I can grow I can add another crew. And so I think it's much better to continue to add crews based on the availability of a new crew leader from within. That was a hard lesson learned for me. Every time that I tried to break out of that and hire somebody else's supervisor, I hired somebody else's problems. And it just always felt like a very hard way to grow. We wouldn't really do well. Our customers weren't happy. Our quality would slip. The employees working for that person just didn't quite feel the way the rest of the company did. And there's a simple reason why. Like, culture really actually matters. Culture matters more than revenue, because culture in your company is just the way it is. And if the way it is in your company is that people don't care about quality, they don't care about safety, they don't care about efficiency, and they don't understand the systems, then your company's kind of worthless and it won't be sustainably profitable. So growing top line revenue without having that person who's already grown from within, who can repeat what you've already been doing, is just a recipe for disaster, because your culture quickly goes sideways. And I experienced this many times in my career. When the company grew too fast, I always suffered on culture. When we grew a little bit more sustainably and we would grow based on the availability of next year's crew supervisor, we would always grow very sustainably. They understood how we estimate. They understood what success looks like. They understood how to unlock wage increases, bonuses. They understood how to keep the customers happy, our equipment maintained. And when all these things were in order, it became easy to grow. And so in the masterclass, what I always teach people is there's a cost to growth. It costs you money. You have to have cash flow to grow. And so you got to understand what that looks like, and that the budget will dictate. And so your cash flow is another restriction. So we have to be able to afford the growth. We have to have the people to grow. And then we have to have the customers or the demand to grow. And so when those three things are all in balance, it becomes easy to grow. So getting past 500,000 really does rely on your ability to replace yourself many, many times over. And that means you have to know how to grow people. You have to have some systems and processes. You've got to have a budget that dictates whether or not you can afford to grow. And then it makes sense to grow. The other thing I'll say is this, like, for every 300,000 in revenue, you're only going to have $75,000 to $100,000 to spend on labor. And so you got to remember that if you're going to grow and add a crew, you kind of have to add $250,000 to $300,000 in revenue to be able to afford to pay another crew. And like what I see all the time is people get excited about the gear, right? And I know I was like this as a young business owner, and I don't know if I ever grew out of it. You want to add another truck and you want to add another plow, but sometimes people are just wanting the equipment so bad that they talk themselves into some growth, and then what happens is they're spending more money on equipment and labor, and the revenue hasn't caught up yet. And so what I always try to teach people is, if you're going to add a crew, you're kind of committing to like a $250,000 to $300,000 growth, which means you have to know how to market and sell $250,000 to $300,000 worth of work. And so that's why in the mastermind sessions, I really focus on day one on building people and day two on building sales process, because I think if you're going to scale the business, you have to have the people ready and you have to have the sales process. And all of that follows those first three foundational items, which is the budget, the estimating, and the job costing.
That, like, 9 minutes, 5 minutes is, that would unlock so much frustration in our industry as a whole, Mark. Like, of the millions of people I've probably been able to interact with, that's just a wild thought. Like, so many guys want the equipment, but they don't know that they're committing to a building block of business instead, if that makes sense. And like you said, some people are good at the equipment or the work, but they're not good at building people, or they don't have the right people. So a lot of people always say, well, we're going to grow $100,000 next year. And they just had their, two right hands quit. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't think that's a building block for success. Like, where are we at? So that's I love how you said, when we have the people in place and they let us know what to do, quote unquote, then that's what we know where the company can grow that following year. But if we try to maybe ramrod top down, grow just to grow, and we don't have the right people in place, you're saying that the company typically has suffered. Is that in summary?
Absolutely. That every time I tried to do it that way, it hurt, and it hurt bad. I really believe that once we've got the people, we can go ahead and take that next leap. The other big thing that I often try to work with people on is, if you've got a $300,000 business today and you've got 4 employees, what happens if you actually double the revenue per hour that each employee is producing? In other words, what if you sell your work using better pricing and packaging, and you really unlock the opportunity of enhancements like planting work and mulching on maintenance accounts? Or if you're a design build contractor, what if you get better at designing and you can design more expensive materials, and you can sell pavers at the premium pavers, and you can do nicer projects with more planting and add things like landscape lighting and irrigation? Now what happens is your average ticket goes up. And so if revenue per hour doubles and you've got 4 employees doing, let's say, $400,000, now you're doing $800,000 and you didn't really add much. Maybe you'll buy another truck. Maybe you'll buy 2 and you can afford to. But the reality is you didn't add a lot of people, and people are the most expensive thing in landscaping. Trucks and mowers are cheap compared to people. Ultimately, what we want to do is find a way to get the most revenue per hour that we can from each employee, so that we can pay them a fair wage and earn a nice solid profit. And that's really what I teach in the mastermind sessions.
Before you turn off the podcast, there are 2 things that we believe you will be highly interested in. First, if you're looking to stay up to date with the latest trends and insights in the world of lawn care, then you'll want to subscribe to our free email newsletter. It shows up in your inbox 3 times a week and includes a Monday motivational to kick off your week, a Wednesday what's new to keep you informed, and a Friday weekly recap of all the content we put out. The second thing is we have just launched Lawntrepreneur Academy Link. Now you can be a part of an exclusive community that links you to those who can help you grow in your lawn care business. Joining Lawntrepreneur Link will give you the tools that you need to stay accountable, get real-time expert advice, and find belonging in a community of folks who are passionate about the lawn care industry just like you. Visit LawnTrepreneurAcademy.com to learn how Link membership gives you unique access to monthly hangouts, bidding hour calls, coaching calls, expert lessons, and more. Stay ahead of the curve and level up your business with a membership to the Lawntrepreneur Academy Link. Find an easy-to-use link in the podcast description.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.